Um, as I was saying, I decided that that the Hemshech, the Hemshech, the Rebbe Rashab's Maimorim is just a little bit too hard. Too many details, and it's more than we're ready for. And I would like to change that and learn the Rebbe, the Friedrich Rebbe's Maimorim. Friedrich Rebbe's Maimorim are much more bekitzur, and I think we'll have much more benefit from it. Okay, so in Tovshin Ches, yeah, take a sheet and pass it down. Everybody has, okay. I think we will gain immensely from this mimer. This is a mimer that's part of the book Tovshin Ches. Yeah, the Moshits. And I'm hoping that you will be able to find some, extra time to hazard it and really know it in great detail. Okay, we'll start by the way. Ki Menasse Hashem Elokeichem Eschem Lodas. This is the pasuk in the Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu is telling the Yidden that Hashem is continually Menasse. Menasse means testing the Yidden. Lodas, in order to bring out das, in order to know. And we're going to explain, understand what is this. What is the function of this, and how does it work, and what is the ultimate accomplishment? Hine haneshama koidem iridosa lamato. The neshama before its descent lamato, here below, lehislabesh beguf, to become attached and affect the body. The nefesh hativis, and also the nefesh hativis, the natural soul. Oimedes lamailo, the neshama stands above, ba'olam ha'elyon, in the higher world. V'sham hoyo etzlo gilui elokus. And there, the neshama had Gilui Elokus, true revelation of godliness. What this is saying, this is an introduction, is that the neshama, before coming down into the body, the neshama is not just that which gives life to the body. The neshama has a function of its own. It's a spiritual, a ruchniziki entity, but a real, true presence. And it had the experiences of a neshama way before it came down into the body. Coming down into the body is a function that was given the neshama to accomplish. This is not what defines what the neshama is. And when it comes down into the body, it comes out into the guf and nefesh hativis, which means it relates to a world that is completely different than the world that the neshama belongs to, the neshama relates to. What was the world that it was before? It had Gilui Elokus. What does that mean, Gilui Elokus? V'hainu. The Chol HaKoich Shebineshama. That it means that all the faculties of the neshama, seichel, the mind, the intelligence faculties, omidos, and the attributes and the tendencies, the natures of the neshama, v'koiches re'iyah u'shmiyah, and also including the peripheral koiches of re'iyah and shmiyah, of sight and hearing. Hine hakoil hu be'elokus. It was all in Elokus. Two more lines and then we'll come back to discuss this. Just as in the ha'ora, in the reflection of the neshama, hamislabesh is beivore haguf, that becomes attached and imbued in the body, in the bodily limbs. Hine kol koiches v'chushe haguf. So there, all the koiches, all the capabilities and the senses of the body, heim bidvorim gashmi, are only in physical objects, physical matters. Hine kmoi kein, in like manner, hu behanshoma be'elokus. This is what the neshama experienced in Elokus. Okay. In our experience, which means the way the neshama is in the guf, the physical reality, a physical object, that is a primary reality. You don't have to prove this table exists. You know it not because you have proof for it. This is the reality. And if you begin to conceptualize any ruchnisdike inyanim, that is already a concept. For this you need proof, and even after all the proof, it remains kind of a remote thing that you have to believe in. But the physical reality is absolute reality. Why is that? Because here we do not have the function of the neshama itself. We have the function of the ha'ora, like the ha'ora shebin ha'nefesh. Ha'ora is ha'nefesh. I'm sorry?
Here is physical. You said that here we have ha'ora shebin neshama. It's in the physical world.
Yeah. In the physical, in the body, in the physical world. You only have the ha'ora of the neshama. A ha'ora of the neshama means that we'll come back to defining directly and precisely what that directly means. But functionally, it means that it does not function by itself. It functions through the body, through the limb, through the aver that it relates to. Like, for instance, sight. We see through our eyes. We see because in the neshama there is a koyach, what's called koyach horiyah. But we don't see directly with the koyach horiyah. We see through our eyes, which is a physical entity. And there is a whole physical process that takes place in order that the eye should be able to see. That which the neshama sees on its own, we are totally unaware of. We see only that which is imposed to us, which is shown to us from the physical world. In all aspects of our awareness in the physical world, we are aware in the physical world through our experience, through our senses, through our touch, feel, smell, sight. What makes the world real to us? It isn't that we, with closed eyes, know there is a world. We know there is a world because we see it. And because we sense it, we touch it. The reason for that is because that the essence of the neshama does not, the neshama itself knows the truth on its own, without being told, without being shown. Because that's what the neshama is, knows the truth on its own. But the ha'or of the neshama, that this which functions in the goof, that is already dependent on what experience it has, what is being shown to it. This is why here it becomes aware of only the physical world, because that's the reality that's being shown to it. And in order to know a spiritual thing, you have to actually close our eyes and reflect, what is the truth as we believe it? What kind of truth can there be? But essentially, the experience itself is something which comes from through our senses and through our external experiences. One more point to this. This principle is so true that to the extent that people who study the human psychology, the nature, so to speak, the human soul, they debate, they dispute the whole thing, but there is a neshama. They don't see any neshama. They see only that the human being is a reaction to external experiences. They don't even see that there is any kind of proactive thing that he really wants it on his own. Everything is a reaction. The reason they see it that way is because, in fact, what is the neshama aware of? That which is being shown to it. But we know that definitely there is a neshama, and the neshama has an input and has an effect on that which it experiences and that which it sees. But superficially, you don't even notice it. Superficially, you only see that what does a person know? That which affects him. How does he know that there is a table here? Because he can't walk through it. If he walks into it, it's going to hurt him. That's the way superficially it appears. the neshama lamayla, where the neshama is in its essence, there the neshama knows a lakus. Which is the exact opposite of physical and worldly. And I want to define that a little bit. The principal difference between world and elokus and godliness is, as we said just a moment ago, in the world, nothing exists but for the effect that it has. Because it exists only because there is an action and a reaction. Like I said, you know the table because the table holds you back from walking through it. Not that the table is a true entity on its own, an essential truth. There's no essential truth in the world. Everything is all relative. Godliness is the exact opposite. Godliness is only essential truth. World, everything in the world has to be made, has to be created. Elokus is just the opposite. Elokus is that which does not need to be created. Like the Rambam and describes it, and this is a famous quote, that Mitziyusay Me'atzmus, his presence and existence is of itself, of himself. Which means this is an essential truth. So, in the physical world, you don't see except that which affects you. In the spiritual world and in the godly world, the neshama is aware of elokus. In other words, that which is true in itself, and it does not have to speak for itself, does not have to demonstrate itself, does not have to manifest itself in order to be seen. It's the essential truth. That's what the neshama is aware of, lamayla. In the world, only things exist only by manifestation. In the elokus, just the opposite. There's no need for manifestation. There's no such thing as manifestation. It's the essential truth that is there. And there, as he says here, all the koichas are nefesh, which means seichel and midas, and even the and shmiya, even the sense of sight and hearing, is also in elokus. This we'll need to understand, because sight and hearing seems to be required that there should be an outside. Something should be shown to me. Something should make a noise. If there's no manifestation, what is the sight and hearing coming? So this we'll leave off for the time being, but this is what he says. All koiches, including peripheral koiches of action of sight and hearing, are all in elokus.
They're not being actively used there.
I'm sorry?
They're not being actively used there.
They are being actively used. They are being actively used. By us in the physical world, sight and hearing are the senses that bring the world to us. Without that, we don't even know there's a world. Over there, sight and hearing are not in order to manifest and to tell the neshama that there is a Elokus, but it is the inyonim Elokus, the inyonim. And for this we have to go into greater detail what in fact is sight and hearing. But essentially it is the recognition in Elokus, the recognition that in Elokus too there are inyonim to be seen and inyonim to be heard. And that's what the sight and hearing is in the shop. Okay. This principle that Binah just explained means also that if you would show the neshama the way the neshama is lamayla, you would show a world, you wouldn't see it. You wouldn't know what you're talking about. Because it's not real. There's no reality. It doesn't exist in the realm of the neshama. You want to understand that, right? We try to use physical illustrations so that we have a sense of orientation to understand the physical versus spiritual. So the one illustration that seems to bring a thing very clearly is something like this. We have these tables over here set up and chairs and people sitting around. So a human being who enters this room, what does he see? Does he see the table and chairs? Is that what he notices? Or does he see people involved in learning? He sees people involved in learning, which is a spiritual phenomenon. There's nothing physical about it. Lahavim, a cat walks in here. What does it see? Tables and chairs.
A guy could also see the spiritual that we're not reading, so.
Right, because a goy also has intelligence.
But then I'm neshama.
They have a nefesh inushis.
The animal doesn't.
What?
Animal also
No,
doesn't.
not the nefesh inushis.
Nushis?
An animal has a nefesh abanis. An animal nefesh abanis, not a human nefesh abanis. If a goy lahavla comes in the middle of a brengen, what does he see? People drinking vodka. What does a yid see? Fabrengen. Hopefully. So this illustrates that you see that which you can relate to. The neshama l'mayla does not see the physical world at all. It doesn't exist in its realm. Why? Because it's just not real. Everything is just relative, and the neshama knows only of absolute truths, of truths that are true in and of themselves.
So it doesn't see physicality, it doesn't see
Right.
at all.
At all. It's a different world completely.
Now, after the neshama is
I'm sorry?
How about after the neshama is in the guf? Or even after the neshama leaves the guf? Is it different?
after the neshama leaves the goof, this is Kabbalah inyanim. Generally speaking, there's a certain period during which the neshama can still relate to the physical world. But after it completely cleanses off, it loses complete connection to it.
And the neshama of a tzaddik, it says that tzaddik is more, and this Alter Rebbe says it's more in this world after he did.
Yeah, but that's for a different reason. That's in order to enhance Torah and mitzvahs in the world.
But does it still relate? Does the neshama of a tzaddik still relate to this world?
Not from a worldly perspective. Not from a godly perspective. Not the world, because the world has a godly purpose. Yeah.
Does that mean the neshama can feel even pain for a period of time after it leaves the body? During that cleansing period?
I would rather not answer the question right now.
Okay.
Because it's too involved. But this Indian, there's a story briefly. There's a story with the Samach Tzedek. It's a little bit of an involved story. But there was a Tintoira Lamaila, where a Tintoira Lamaila, and somebody was being judged for some action in this world because, for monetary reasons, he had to fire a yid from his work, and he was being accused of it, and he had every excuse why he did it and so forth, and the Beis Din Maila found him guilty. So then the Neshama L'Maila said that the Beis Din Maila does not appreciate money, and they're not eligible to pass judgment on this case. It's the whole involvement, the whole story that's Machzedek. So they asked him, so who is eligible? He says he has to be a neshama that was already in the world before. So they got the Bach, one of the poskim, and the Tur and the Bach, I think it was, and they also paskin that he is guilty. So he says, well, they are too long away from this world, and they already forgot what the world is like. So who should paskin? Somebody in the Shama that's currently in the world. And the story is that the Tzemach Tzedek was the Pesach, and he said not guilty. So, all right.
As if in the Baal Shem.
Huh?
What about rent? I didn't pay his
Yeah,
rent.
no. Right. Okay. V'kasher haneshama yeredas lamato. One more point I have to make here. This whole discussion, this whole point, is for us to understand that even though we are limited, as a matter of fact, to seeing the physical world, that does not mean that we are actually confined to knowing only the physical world. It means that this is what our natural inclination, this is what we are, what we see naturally. But we have koiches hanefesh, we have holy koiches, whereby we are able to recognize, this is what the whole union of emunah is. We have emunah, faith. What's faith? Faith is not just because I close off my mind and I say, I have to, this is what I'm supposed to think. That's not faith. Faith is a koyach hanefesh, where if one really goes into introspection and judges what he really thinks internally, not how he thinks externally, so to speak, how things look like, what makes sense in the external world. But what he thinks internally, he will find that he really sees that the only truth is Holocaust. That's a real truth. So, in other words, the truth of the Neshama is not is not completely locked out from us, as for sure. But it has to, as I said, it's through introspection, and then it is captured and maintained in our lives through physical activity, through mitzvahs, learning Torah. Without that, we don't have it. We can relate to it. Like we say, faith alone does not carry a person. Okay, let's continue. V'kasher hanshomo yoredes lamato. And as the neshama descends downwards, le'islabesh beguv v'nefesh hativis, to be mislabesh, to clothe itself and to attach itself to the guv and the nefesh hativis. Nefesh hativis means the natural soul. Let me explain briefly the term neshama yoredes lamato. Neshama comes down lamato. This is a common expression, but we need to pay attention to the form. What does it mean it comes down? Where is it coming down from? How many flights of stairs has it come down? What is the meaning it comes down? What's down and up? So, coming back to the illustration that we used before of the room of people are sitting and involved in a thought. And this room, people are sitting among a thought. There are, number one, there is a number of people, and there are a number of chairs, a number of tables, and each table has a board and 4 legs, and so forth. There are all kinds of details involved. But what is really happening is this one point, one aspect. What really, so to speak, is the life force behind all that which is taking place here. Why is everything here? Why are the tables here? Why are the people here? This is this one nakuda of what they're occupied with. This one nakuda is called the up, the higher point. As you go down into greater detail, it's called going down. Why is it called going down? In this case, it simply means that you go down to its components. Each person is one detail, one part of the whole. Each person by himself does not represent the whole. It's part of the whole. And then each table is another detail. And every table has details of legs that support the table, and so forth. How do we get this setup together? By bringing in every table separately. We build it by piece by piece. We build the tables, we bring the chairs, and the people come. So these components, this is called the down, because this is what is used in constructing the overall entity, the bigger entity. Why is it called down? It's called down because it, on its own, it does not have a primary value of its own. Like a table by itself. Table by itself, without being used, without being in a dining room, is just a piece of physical wood. It does not have its own value. When it is part of a greater entity, then it acquires value. So this is what's called down. In other words, how do we build anything in the world? We take a brick that in itself, on its own, is totally insignificant. But if you put a lot of bricks together in a certain order, you get a house. But how do you build it? What are the components? The components are the simplest bricks. That's how you build it. So this is the difference between the way the neshama is l'maylo, above. Above, the neshama sees and relates to the real thing, to the way the inyan is and the truth of what's going on. Coming down lamato in this world, you cannot have any truth without components. You cannot have a learning session without there being pieces that bring it together. You cannot have a home without building a home from individual bricks. So as the neshama comes down lamato, there the reality becomes that the lowest element. Now, what is the basic component of the world? A brick, and then from this brick you build a whole edifice. Okay? So as the neshama read this lamato, this descends downwards, lehislabish begufin avratis, to connect itself to the body, just like in the body. The body is like one body, but the body is composed of details. There are hands, there are feet. It's not all one unit. Every aspect, every koyach of the neshama that functions in the body functions in a separate part in the body. For the intellect, there is the brain. For the emotion, there is the heart. For sight, there is the eyes. And then everything together becomes one goal, the entity. Oh, this is a human being. That's when everything is brought together. But in order to have it, you have to go down to the lowest level in order for it to compose a human being. Hine iridoso b'seiser hamadreges. The descent of the neshama, b'seiser hamadreges. Seiser hamadreges means throughout all the hidden levels. There are many different levels that he has to descend. V'liyo is bebchinas richuk mokim kaviyochim. So that the neshama should be bebchinas richuk mokim, in a sense of a distance kaviyochim. I'll explain that in a minute. In a sense of a distance, like being distant in place, ubebchinas hester ponim meir havaya, and to be in a state of darkness, of hester ponim, that the face of Elokus is being hidden from the godly light. This is the descent of the neshama. The neshama descends and comes all the way down to the body. This is, the effect of it is that it becomes richuk mokem kaviyochel. Kaviyochel, the word kaviyochel means if it be possible to say, that's what kaviyochel. Because in fact there's no such thing as distance from Elokus bichlal, and especially the neshama cannot be distant from Elokus. This is why he says the word bibchinas yichuk mokoin. Bibchinas yichuk mokoin. The word bibchinas means to denote something that is not in fact that way, but it has that sense, that quality. It has the quality of being richuk mokoin. In our sense, this is what we're going to be learning, but just to illustrate the point, the neshama is not distant from Elokus. The neshama can see Elokus through the world. And the neshama can take the world and be mevara the world and see that the world itself really is Elokus and it's for a godly purpose. But there it sees the world, the Elokus through the world. That's called B'richuk Mokum. It sees it through the process of understanding what the world is about. That's why it's called B'chinas Richuk Mokum Kaviyach. And Hester Poni Meiravai. And it is in a state of Hester Poni, where godly light is being concealed from it. And now it has to start digging up and figuring out where is the godliness. So this is the phenomenon that happens, because the neshama remains what it is. The neshama does not recognize worldliness, and it only knows Elokus. And then it comes down into the body. And in the body, it can only see physical entities. So now it starts digging, says, I see physicality, but that's not real. So it begins to, it's like in a quandary. That's not the reality that I know. That cannot be real. But that's all I see. This is called Hester Ponim. Hester Ponim means where the word pony means face. Just like when you see a person. When you see a person face to face, you don't have to second guess who is this person. You don't know a person because you figure out, oh, he's got 2 eyes, blue eyes, a long white beard. Oh, this must be him. You see him, you know the person directly. Not through any kind of signs and indicators. When you see a person from the back, you can also identify a person from the back. But how do you identify him? Oh, it looks like him. It's his stance, it's his turn, it's his way of walking. There's some indicators. You don't know him directly. This is called the Hester point. Now that you don't see him, it cannot possible not see him. But you see it through a hidden manner. Through a process. And this is what happens to the neshama. It sees Elokus, but within its Hester Ponim, it doesn't see it face to face, doesn't see it directly. It has to dig for it and see it indirectly. Hine. The ultimate purpose of the descent of the neshama, hu bishvil habirurim bichlal. It is for the purpose of birurim. Birurim means to clarify and verify and substantiate and altogether purify the world. This means birurim. Just as in our little illustration, when you enter the room and you see people occupied, if you've never seen it before, so you start looking around, what's going on. So if you've never seen it before, So you begin from bottom up. You begin from that part which you know. You know this is the table, this is the chair, and this is a human being. And then you say, oh, but that's not what's happening because the people are sitting here together for some reason. So then you begin to investigate and so forth, and you come to the conclusion, oh, this is what's really happening here. It's not the tables and the chairs. This is what's really happening. That's what birurim. You clarify until it becomes pure and clear. This is what's happening. The same thing when you have an apple and you say, oh, what's this apple? What's this about? Oh, the apple, this grows on a tree. But why is it producing apples? What's the tree need apples for? So there's a whole discussion, but basically you come back to the tree produces apples, he has seeds and all kinds of different things. You say, so I'm eating part of the tree? No. You come to a conclusion and realize the tree produces apples because God commanded it to produce apples. Why? So that I should be able to eat it. And then I make a bracha, I don't thank the tree, I thank the Meibush. That's called biruri. The world itself conceals superficially the truth. It seems that you're eating an apple from a tree. And you thank the apple for giving you a tree. And you find right. Right. You thank the tree for giving the apple. This is what happened about the Arabs that came to eat by Avram. They thanked Avram. That was already a nice human recognition. Avram said, that's not what happens over here. This is the same thing. Yes, we thank the Balabosta and so forth, but essentially, we make a bracha before we eat. Because that's the real thing that's happening over here. We eat it from Hashem's hand. That's the real thing. And this, the purpose of Birurim, we're going to see later, but this is what the Neshama came down to the world to come into a Hester Pony, where at first glance you see an apple from a tree, which has no purpose whatsoever, no meaning whatever. I decided that it's edible, but as far as the world's concerned, as far as the tree is concerned, it makes no difference what happens to that apple. Couldn't care less. Until you come to the realization, no, it was intentionally by God Himself created so that you would eat it. And you have a completely different respect for it when you realize that. And this birurim, this reveals godness in the world. So birurim bichlal, in general birurim. In general, birurim means, bichlal means, at every step of the way, even on perfectly normal, natural mode of life, a person is constantly involved in birurim. All the time. When you go to sleep so that they make a bracha, hamapil, so that you can wake up and be strong and refreshed, or as we're able to say Moedani. Everything is constantly involved in birurim. In bringing out the godliness that's taking place in the world. This is birurim bichlal. And then the inyan hanisyoines biprat. Then there is another inyan that the Neshama came down, which is an exception and a supreme accomplishment, the inyan of nisyones.
Inyan of what?
Nisyones, tests. Nisyones, in general, means that the neshama and the person, the yid, is put in front of such a situation that not normal, beyond the normal. That's called a nisoyin. And a nisoyin generally, essentially means like this. The normal world conceals godliness, but it doesn't deny godliness. If you see an apple, you don't see godliness, but yeah, but you say God created it for me, fine, glad, I'm eating it. But a nisoyin is a situation that the world is not just not demonstrating godliness, but is concealing it and even denying it. When you see things happening in the world contrary to a godly presence, that's a nisoyin. And the power of a nisoyin, ultimately the nisoyin, this is the supreme purpose of the neshama coming down to the world. Because this is where you actually conquer, so to speak, and conquer the lowest elements in the world. And bring godliness in a completely different way into the world. And that's why it's ina nisoyinus biprat. That's not constant. That's something which we hope not to be tested too much, but this has a tremendous purpose of its own. The supreme purpose. The hanisyoines.
Does this help us find our own purpose?
Yeah, but that's what our purpose is here for. The hanisyoines, the nisyoines are mehester ponim. Nisyoines come from a state of hester ponim. Hester ponim means concealing of the face. Let me go through this line and we'll be able to discuss it afterwards. Concealing of the face, v'istalkus chayus shefa ho'eleki. And the removing, istalkus means to removing, chayus, the life force of shefa ho'eleki, of the godly bestowment of God, the godly energy, the godly force that comes into the world and gives chayus into the world. B'miniyas brios haguf, and it comes in the form of, God forbid, miniyas brios haguf, of a lack of bodily health, or miniyas parnosa, or a shortage in parnosa, God forbid, v'hadoyna, and such other similar circumstances. So this is going to be discussed now, but then let me just put this in perspective. We know that God created the world. There's absolutely no doubt about this. And we know that God has, it's called, Hashem is called, it has the name Shada, Shin Daled Yud. Shaka means that Shaddai, Be'elakusi L'chol Boyel, Hashem has no shortage of provision for everything and everyone, no matter, there could be 5 billion people, there could be 50 billion people, it makes a difference. He's got enough for everybody. Abundance for everybody. And that essentially is what Hashem is putting into the world. Giving sustenance in abundance. Thus, if Chas v'Shalom there is something lacking, we know that the lack is not because, in essence, there is something, a shortage. There's something missing. But that this was intentionally withheld for the purpose of bringing out whatever it's going to bring out. This is like if a child wants a candy. And the mommy doesn't give her a candy. child knows that the mommy doesn't give her candy, not because the mommy is stingy, not because the mommy doesn't have the candy, but because the mommy considers that this is not a good thing to give the candy right now. This has a completely different implication to the child. When the child thinks that the mommy doesn't give him candy because he's stingy or because he doesn't have, that really disturbs the child. When the child understands, an intelligent child understands that it's an intentional withdrawal because for a benefit for the child, then the child is able to accept it in a totally different way. All nisyonis, all shortages in the world, we have to understand like this. Everybody has to go through his challenges in the world and so forth. But I just want to illustrate that point. I don't remember the year when America reached a census of 100 million. 100 million people in America. This was tremendous. It was like a landmark, a benchmark. Wow. And the whole world, which now I think is counted about 6 billion. I mean, going back a few hundred years ago, was a fraction of this. People throughout all the ages were always worried if we have an explosion, population explosion, if the world, if we're going to have 1 billion people in the world, there's going to be starvation. Not going to have what to eat, not going to have a place to live. Now, Baruch Hashem, there is 6 billion people in the world, and there is more food today to go around than there ever was, and more comfortable accommodations in every respect. So that we have to understand that really the Eibishter has supplied, Hashem, the supply that the Eibishter has put into the world is limitless. Yes, we have to go through certain initiatives, you have to go through certain paths, but that is intentional. The Hester Ponim and the challenge of getting there is intentional. Because this is what's called Nisyonis. It's one thing to pick up an apple from the table that your mommy served and say, Mommy, thank you for serving the apple. But I know that the Rebbe creates the apple. Thank you, the Rebbe. It's quite a different thing. If you have to go and plow the field and labor and work, and then sometimes it grows, sometimes it doesn't grow, and then finally it grows up and you say, Rebbeinu Shalom, thank you for giving me an apple. Why don't you Rebbeinu Shalom? Look what I had to put into this. And if then you recognize it's Rebbeinu, it's a completely different recognition. Then it's a true recognition. Then it's a recognition that you break through, so to speak, the facade and the hell of the Hester of the world, and you recognize that the world is Holocaust. This is essentially the Pshat Nisyonis. It's a simple thing, he says. It's lacking parnosa. Lacking parnosa, it's a parnosa. But what is the purpose? That we should know that ultimately the lack of parnosa itself is intentional in order to bring out the best, to bring out whatever is the purpose of it, as we're going to see. Especially when later on, when it is restored, we have a completely different appreciation and recognition of what the truth is. And this is an Nisoyan, because very often a person has struggles with parnosa, and when he breaks through, he forgets, he does not give credit where credit is due, and he loses his way. That's part of Nisyonis. והכוונה בזה, and the intent in these Nisyonis is, who, kidei lahastir aloir v'chayas havaya. It is in order to conceal and to hide the godly light, ugdashasa yizborach, and Hashem's holiness, because from the perspective of Hashem's holiness and Hashem's chayas, there cannot be any lack, any shortage. It's infinity itself. And here we say that there is a lack. That means that God's presence is being hidden, is being lost. So that will be a moneya, a preventive effort, something that's an interference with the person from inside and outside. La'odam, for this person, shabol his karev lahavaya, the person who wants to come closer to Hashem, la'avidosi yizborich, and to His service. He wants to come closer to Hashem, and then he first begins to experience nisyonos of all kinds, to make it difficult for him. Ukmeisha Kosuf, as the Pasuk says, Madua derech l'shoyim tzoleicha. This is a Pasuk in Iyov. Tanakh Iyov. I don't know how many learn Tanakh Iyov. Tanakh Iyov, it's a big Tanakh, a big Sefer, and the whole Sefer consists of debate about how Hashem runs this world. And one of the questions, he says over there, Madua derech Hashem tzoleicha. Why is the path of the Rishoyim successful and tzaddikim suffer? Where is Hashem? V'lochein oimrim yodeinu rama. As a result of that, the Rishoyim wake up and they say, Yodeinu rama, our hand is on top, because our Rasha in this world has a chance of success. And those who hold on to Torah mitzvahs, soivlim rachmon al Islam, they suffer, God forbid, oini, poverty, v'inui, and suffering, bekama yesure haguva nefesh, all kinds of bodily and spiritual pain. That happens. The truth is, this which the Rebbe is describing over here, every Maimer was, that the Rabbein said, especially the Friedrich Rebbe whose period of reign was a period of tremendous suffering, a very difficult period. Rebbe was Rebbe 10 years, 30 years, and each one of the decades had its own difficulty. Tremendous difficulties, unbelievable. And the Rebbe was explaining what's going on. We have to know, Chas v'sholom, we ask Hashem that we should not be tried. And if we are tried, our trials are on an entirely different level, then God forbid what he is describing over here. This is not what the case is anymore. There was a during the time that Yidden were running away from Russia, we were during the mid-40s. You know that there were a few hundred families, Russian families, that escaped from Russia during the 40s in a very, very dangerous manner. Very, very dangerous. Sometimes maybe I'll relate to you. You may know about it. Very dangerous. It was like mamish putting their life on the line, but they knew that if they stayed over there, their children are going to be lost to Yiddishkeit. So they did everything that they could, gave everything up and ran. And so then, an interesting happened. We crossed the border into Poland, and all of a sudden, the whole world changed. A moment ago, you were afraid for your own breath, afraid to say a bracha lest somebody hears. And now, all of a sudden, you can stand up in the middle of the street, put on tefillin and talis and tefillin done. It was like a complete transformation. So amongst us, there was a big chassid, Reb Nissen Nemanov. And if you heard of him, Reb Nissen Nemanov was a big mashpia. He was amongst the people who then he was one of the pillars of the leaders. So Nissen Nemanov had a Farbrengen then. The Shabbos that we came. By the Farbrengen, Nissen Nemanov was Farbrengen, and he said, you have to remember the circumstances under which he was talking, because he was just now coming out, so to speak, from such oppression. So he should say, oh, great. He says, Eden, he said, you should know that till now we were in a true world. Now we're coming into the false world. What does that mean? Until now, he said, when you learn Torah, you know you learn with an ends, because it meant putting your life on the line. The yeshiva bachim that learned in Russia, they used to run from place to place to hide from the KGB. When they were discovered, they had to run elsewhere, and many of them were caught and sent away to Siberia. He didn't stop the others. He was going like this. So he really meant it. Now he says you came to a place where if you learn of Lad Gemara, you're going to get COVID for it. So he says, it's going to be a different world. Now you're going to get COVID for learning instead of being afraid for your life. So now we give COVID for learning, and we have everything but Hashem. But we still have to understand the Nisyonis, everyone on his own, and on our, the Nisyonis, everybody still gets Nisyonis. The Rebbe still sees to it that everyone grows up to the highest potential that he can. So we have to understand what this is, what this thing is. Okay, this is it for today.
You want to ask my question now? Pop right there, walk somewhere else.
There's a portion in the good that there's a portion about capabilities in the Chumash that Mor's Menasse that talks about the idea that this is what tests are. It's